stretching way back to my childhood. I wanted to understand time. Being shown the stars through a telescope and told that, what I was seeing was thousands of years in the past. To me, it was a mystery that the ebbs and flows of time. My name's Jem Finer, and I've composed Long Player, which is an everlasting piece of music that repeats every 1,000 years. Long Player started playing at the beginning of the year 2000. Around the middle of the 1990s, the millennium, started to be discussed a lot, but really all that was being discussed were very short-term ways of celebrating it. A few nights of fireworks and parties. It seemed to me there was a kind of absurdity about celebrating something so long by strategies that were so short. So one of the things that interested me was making this 1,000 years tangible. It occurred to me one day that the best way I could do that was to write a piece of music. If you imagine taking 6 copies of the same record and playing them on 6 different turntables. You spin each turntable at a different speed. You're moving through the material at different points on each one. And in that way you get a relationship that never resolves, never comes back into phase until exactly after 1,000 years. So what these singing bowls are here are all the bowls that are necessary to play any point of Long Player in its 1,000-year-long duration. You think a singing bowl, well, it's just this bell and you just hit it and it sounds. But actually they're very complex. It's like there's all sorts of sounds in there that you can tease out in different ways. The future of Long Player could go many different ways. We don't know what's going to happen technologically, politically, culturally, ecologically. It creates this continuum of people, a community of listeners and caretakers across generations until the 31st of December 2999, at which point it will get back to where it first started and start again.
They sound a lot like voices, or like an angry choir. Somebody told me that they sound a lot like sniffing a whole lot of magic markers all at once. You can decide for yourself. I'm Andy Cavatorta, and I'm a sculptor. I work with robotics and with sound. The work that I mostly do involves creating new types of musical instruments or new types of physical sounds. A lot of times this has a lot to do with motion and form. What I'm sitting next to right here, it's called the Dervishes. It's got these 14 spinning arms. It's similar to the toys that you played with as a kid, where you might spin a corrugated plastic tube over your head. There's a lot of circuit boards in here for motor control, and we measure the speeds very precisely. And then there's a lot of software that takes the specific pitches, figures out exactly where they should be played and at what speeds. It's a lot of fine-tuning all the way through, from the music that gets written for it, to the software that calibrates and adjusts and controls it, all the way through to the fine-tuning and the motor controllers. What I do is a bit on a parallel track with a lot of what's happening in electronic music. But I work specifically, almost exclusively, with physical sound. Almost never with synthesized sound or samples or stuff like that, just because those are the ones that actually have the most meaning to me. All my life I've been interested in sound. I think it's how I figure things out. I always love when these instruments create the possibility to make music that didn't exist before.
My name is Alex Holman, and I play tenor Smith Corona with the Boston Typewriter Orchestra. The Boston Typewriter Orchestra is an ensemble for typewriter and voice. Some of us have musical backgrounds, some of us don't. Several of our members play in bands currently. I haven't touched much of anything except for a typewriter since playing the trombone in high school. We play a wide variety of typewriters, from some small portable models all the way up to some relatively large desk models. A lot of what we do in building up songs is really exploring what different sounds we can get out of the typewriter and how we can incorporate them into a song. For example, you have the key makes sort of a basic clack sound, but then you have the shift that moves a lot of the mechanics and makes somewhat of a bass sound. Then you also have the roller that gets sort of a mechanical ratchet sound to it. And then all of them we can work with the carriage return for like the standard swoopy sound to it. As our name suggests, the Boston Typewriter Orchestra is Boston-based, but we've actually played all over New England. Most of the typewriters are 50, 60, 70 years old. Usually in our hands, we see 2 to 3 years of lifespan. We beat on them pretty hard.
My fingers hurt.
When we started out in 2004, we were a bunch of guys getting together and kind of banging on typewriters. We get that we're kind of weird, it's a little bit of a wacky idea, but we've discovered that this makes some legitimate music and it can be a real serious endeavor. We have true songs that come together and people seem to really enjoy them, and as long as we still are entertaining people, we're going to stay out there typing.
Very often people think it's gonna be funny and then they realize it's not really. We really do music. It's not impossible to make music with vegetables. My name is Susanna Gartmeier and then I'm a member of the Vegetable Orchestra. The orchestra exists since 18 years now. The first instrument was the tomato, because you can do sound with tomatoes, but it will be messy for sure. We go shopping on the market first. We choose all the vegetables there. We have 3 kinds of instruments. One is the ready-made. You can just buy it at the market and play it. It's like the pepper, it's called, no? It's ready already. And then there are the simple instruments, like with 1 cut or some cuts. You get it like that. Then with the more complex instruments, we have some that work like normal instruments, you know. The pumpkin is the bass drum, and the sound of the pumpkin is really important.
Good.
After shopping, we go to the venue and start to build instruments. All in all, it takes 2 to 3 hours to build all the instruments for everybody. And then we start with the sound check. And since we have new instruments each time, we have to have a very long sound check. We have a lot of different musical influences in the orchestra. Since we're really many people, everybody's interested in different things. We make a soup during the building process of the vegetable instruments with the remaining vegetables, and we serve it to the audience after the concert. And it's also after hearing and seeing us and smelling the vegetables, which will be intense in there because it's so small, this theater, and then you can also eat it. You never get it out of your head anymore if you're in the orchestra to look vegetables in another way.
There's the rulers, the reverb tank, the EBO.
A normal instrument You're playing it and you're expecting it to have a sound that is pleasing. But with an instrument like this, the goal is to just produce sounds that, in this case, are disturbing.
The apprehension engine is an instrument that creates a variety of really creepy and some would say horrifying sounds. My name is Mark Corvin. I'm a film music composer, and lately I've been focusing on horror movie scores. Two of my biggest hits as far as horror films are concerned was from the late 90s, a film called Cube, and most recently, The Witch. I originally commissioned the apprehension engine because I was tired of the same digital samples, which resulted in a lot of sameness of a lot of horror music. So I was looking for something more experimental, more acoustic, that would give me a little bit more of an original sound. That's where I contacted my friend, Tony Duggan Smith.
So Mark called me asking me to create a crazy instrument for horror films. Because I'd never done anything like that before, it made me empty out all my pockets and all my drawers of any knickknacks and bits and bobs I could possibly string together to make it happen for him. And this is what came of it. You're dealing with things that stir primal emotions and feelings. And there actually is a skill set that you have to acquire in order to get the most out of it.
It expresses what really can't be expressed any other way. It's not music in the traditional sense at all. But let me put it this way. The apprehension engine definitely evokes an emotion. So I would call it music.